Hey, I'm Frostelian, and this is the quick guide to Frost Death Knight in Battle for Azeroth. Everything should be familiar from Legion, so to get you in the game faster, I'm just going to go through the damage side of things. If you are a new player, here is a short overview of core mechanics. DKs have 6 runes, and spending them generates runic power. You can use all 6, but only 3 will recharge at a time, so make sure they are. Gameplay is built around juggling resources to catch procs. Obliterate uses runes and the Killing Machine proc. Obliterate can itself proc Rime, during which is the only time you should use Howling Blast. Froststrike uses runic power with a chance to return a rune, so try not to use it when you already have 3 runes. As for cooldowns, you have Pillar of Frost, that buffs strength, Empower Rune Weapon, that is now a haste buff, use it before Pillar, and Remorseless Winter, that is used with every other pillar. Right, let's move on to talents. I'll quickly summarise them, addressing the finer points after. 56 Inexorable Assault passively adds damage to one target. Icy Talons speeds up auto attack, just don't let the buff drop off, and Cold Heart builds up damage over 40 seconds, use it with Pillar of Frost and other buffs. Runic Attenuation passively generates runic power, Murderous Efficiency can give a rune back on Killing Machine, and Horn of Winter gives some resources, but not much and not often. 58 Death's Reach resets grip and is your default choice this tier. Asphyxiate is a stun, and Blinding Sleet is a disorientate. 60 Avalanche gives more Ryan damage, Frozen Pulse passively AoEs when low on runes, and Frost Scythe is an active AoE that works with Killing Machine, turning Obliterate into a filler ability. 75 Permafrost builds up a shield for 20% of your health, Wraithwalk is pseudo mobility and your default choice, and Death Pact is a heal that also blocks healing. 90 Gathering Storm increases Remorseless Winter damage, Glacial Advance is runic powered AoE, and Frostworm's Fury throws a dragon. 100 Ice Cap lowers the cooldown on Pillar, Obliteration forces Killing Machine during Pillar, and Breath of Sindragosa is burst damage. Okay, let's look at synergies, and of course because it's Frost, the inevitable problems faced when putting talents together. Builds work around your tier 100 choice, so starting with Obliteration, it functions the same as Legion, alternating between proccing and consuming Killing Machine. So we can immediately point to Murderous Efficiency in 57. As for 56, Cold Heart actively gets in the way, so it's Talons or Assault. On 60, given the increased use of Obliterate, Avalanche makes use of all the Rime procs, but limits you to passive AoE. As such, you are more likely to be taking Frost Scythe, because along with being more generally useful, it turns Obliteration into an AoE cooldown. As for tier 90, Glacial Advance does give procs, but with so many runes being used, there is strong synergy with Gathering Storm, which is a better all-rounder. So with choices done, we have some technical things to go through, because the big change to Obliteration is that it has been bundled into Pillar of Frost. This unfortunately causes several mechanical problems, because during Pillar you don't want to use anything that isn't part of Killing Machine. So this means you have to use Remorseless Winter before Pillar, not during. And since you still need to use Empower Weapon, you end up with the rather odd cast sequence of Winter, Weapon, Pillar, followed then by Froststrike or Rime to force Killing Machine. However, this cooldown chaining creates a whole different set of problems starting combat. My solution resolves it into a very simple, consistent opener. Start with Howling Blast as you run in, then Winter, Weapon, Pillar, Obliterate regardless of Killing Machine, then Rime or Froststrike, alternating from there. If you'd like a detailed explanation as to why this is the answer, I have a video from beta going through it. The final thing of note is with resources mid-combat. When using Obliterate, you need to start with more than 3 runes, otherwise you will instantly run out. So do this by dumping runic power beforehand, intentionally breaking into your rune recharge. Scythe, however, is the complete opposite. It generates less runic power per global, and has a lower Rime chance, so whilst you can start with fewer runes, you need a loss of runic power, else you'll run out. Moving on, we have Ice Cap. This only reduces the cooldown on Pillar, so it asks for nothing from anything. It only really benefits Cold Heart, as Pillar's cooldown is now less than 40 seconds, you can cover it every time without capping stacks. And now we come to Breath of Sindragosa. It's still channeled, costing nothing to cast and runic power to maintain, so you quite simply want to be going in with as much stuff as possible. For talent synergy, you would expect Icy Talons with runic attenuation, but if your gear already procs Killing Machine quite happily, then Murderous Efficiency is fine. because really there are no mechanical conflicts in 56 or 57. For tier 60, it's a toss-up between Frozen Pulse and Scythe. It would be reasonable to expect Frozen Pulse because you are sitting low on runes waiting for procs, but this really limits you to passive AoE. Scythe can make managing runes easier, and it gives you more options outside of Breath. As for 90, you obviously can't take Glacial Advance, which leaves the Dragon or Gathering Storm. Given all the rune usage, Storm is a good choice, and naturally casted after Pillar. With choices done, we can move into technical things. For cooldowns, Breath lines up with Empowering Weapon, so always use both. However, Breath is one of the few abilities not tied to the global cooldown, and since we want the highest uptime with Pillar, cast or macro those together. The biggest part of Breath is getting the longest total duration, but you have no control over how many runes are returned to you or when, so expect to be disappointed on a regular basis. The best you can do is get to 2 runes as quickly as possible, and then obliterate when either a 3rd rune recharges or Killing Machine procs. Bad RNG aside, there are things we can control, such as the casts leading up to Breath on pull. So, having thought about ways to get consistent results for different player abilities, I have 2 options to suggest. The first is very easy with no downtime, but at the cost of a shorter uptime. So, the opening 3 casts are fixed. 2 obliterates, then Howling Blast. This is because if you procced Rime, you are now able to cast another obliterate, clearing all 6 runes. But if you didn't proc Rime, you still put Frost Fever on the target, and you couldn't stop yourself from doing it, which means, Rime or not, runes are done, so we go through cooldowns. Weapon, Pillar with Breath, Winter, and onwards into the loving embrace of RNG. The second opener isn't much different, but it cynically waits for runes to regen, meaning it has a lot of downtime that you could spend, say, admiring the back leg of whatever boss you happen to be fighting. But with such sacrifice, you gain a longer uptime. So in essence, we are obliterating all 6 runes, but instead using Rime anytime you get it during this opening set. This is because we aren't starting until the first 2 runes recharge. Using Rime after the first obliterate is fine, because your regen will be destroyed anyway. But if you didn't get Rime at all, you can lament the lack of Frost Fever as you count the Pyroblasts going over your head. The very instant those first 2 runes return, cooldowns. Weapon, Pillar Breath, Winter, and once again into the inky black void of RNG. Don't worry about using Weapon before the 3rd rune recharge, it will use a fully down rune, and the chain takes a long time to get through. Ultimately, whether you use the 1st or 2nd sequence, you face large, uncontrollable variations in uptime. The difference is only about increasing the probability of getting a longer breath. Okay, so the last thing to look at very briefly in Talents is War Mode. It gives you bonus XP and World Quest rewards, therefore we are taking choices for PvE only. The main pick is Necrotic Aura, as this increases your frost damage, and then whatever trinket is up to you. The other choices are less defined. Personally, I tend towards Frozen Center and Tundra Stalker, but there are also things like Overpowered Rune Weapon. And that's all talents done. Stats-wise, due to the new scaling, you want to take whatever item has the highest eye level. If you actually get to choose, then it's Mastery, Crit Haste, Verse. And of course, to do it properly, just sim your character. And that is the end of the guide. If you made it this far, I trust it was useful, so please help others to find it by leaving a like and or a comment. If you're interested in overthinking WoW, or just games in general, please feel free to subscribe. Either way, I hope you have fun in Battle for Azeroth, and thanks for watching.